My name is Jessica McLean, and facilitating this discussion with me today are April Price and Drew Smith. Our plan is to offer two online discussions per year, one in the fall and one in the spring. Our goals are to highlight interesting work of ULS members, both in their respective libraries and through their ULS committee work, to extend the discussions, session topics, and informal conversations that take place at ALA Annual and Midwinter, and finally to provide a tangible benefit for ULS members, especially those who are not able to regularly attend annual conferences. The topics on the online discussion will vary depending on the interests and expertise of the presenters. Today, our speakers will explore digital creation centers in academic libraries. So, without further ado, I will turn the discussion over to Emily Thompson.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome. We're very glad to have you. Just to clarify things, I am sharing a microphone with Bo Baker. We're going to go ahead and get started, and we're just going to give all of the panelists a chance to kind of explain what they do, and then we're going to open it up to questions. We were hoping for more questions than slides, so if you do have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat, and I will do our best to get to it. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start with Barbara. So if you're ready, Barbara, I'm going to pass the ball to you.
Hello, I hope everyone can hear me, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Barbara Lewis, and I'm in a new position at the library. I'm the Assistant Director for Digital Learning Initiatives at the University of South Florida Tampa Library. And like I said, it's a new position, and I'm managing our digital media commons. We started a digital learning studio about 2 years ago, and a librarian was coordinating those efforts. He resigned about a year ago, and so the studio didn't go away. We actually we got a student technology fee grant. We moved into larger spaces, but there wasn't, it was basically being managed interim by a few different people. They then created this new position, which I am now holding. I am not going to do slides, but I am going to share my desktop, and hopefully you can see it now. It shows our Digital Media Commons website. Hopefully you can see that. And if you can't see it, if you're having problems with it, etc., you can go to lib.us.edu/digital-studio. And I'm just going to kind of walk through. Right when we first started the Digital Media Commons, initially the Digital Learning Studio, it's about media creation, so providing the equipment like DSLR cameras, Panasonic video cameras, etc., tripods, audio recorders, those types of things to our students, so that they could check them out and use them for either for homework, for personal use, or for just trying them out. And then also we have both Mac and PC desktops with the Adobe Creative Cloud Studio Suite and the iLife Studio from Mac, and a few other softwares. And like I said, it was basically about media creation. We didn't do a lot of workshops. It was one-on-one training. What we're starting this year is, if you can see in our slider, we are going to start doing some workshops. But also one of the things I'm trying to promote is not just the media creation, not just taking pictures, making a video, but the curation of that. What are you going to do to it? How are you going to present your ideas to other people? In some ways, the idea of digital storytelling. So I'm going to just kind of walk through our site. This is our front page, kind of gives you a little bit of everything. The workstation software identifies what software we have, and if you scroll down, you'll see that those highlighted in green are the ones that we actually have instruction available for. The Adobe Suite, the iLife Suite, and then other software that we have available. Equipment provides a list of all the equipment we have, and basically you can check our availability. As you can see, for the video cameras, they're either currently all checked out or out for repair at this point. We can't keep our equipment in stock. That's very true for us. One other thing is before loaning somebody any of the equipment, they do have to go through training, and we do keep a log of who has been through the training for what equipment so that we don't have to repeat. Here are the workshops that we're going to be presenting in the spring. We've got 5 different student workshops, and then a couple that we're going to be presenting for the faculty. We also offer tutorials, video tutorials. One of the things that we're also trying to do more of is highlight our student work. We want to do it on the website, but we also have large, like Aquas boards, smart boards that we are showing student videos, those types of things. Next year, we're hoping to have a created horror film festival around Halloween. Our staff profiles, we have 3 permanent staff, myself, Scott Ryan, who is actually the manager of Library Services, Access Services. Britt Self is our media technologist. She supervises the actual DMC operation. And then everyone else that works in the DMC are students, and that we hire them based on, obviously personality has something to do with it because they are customer service people, but then they all have to have some level of expertise in one of the softwares that we do offer. Our policies and procedures. The DMC we have 30 computers, 15 Macs, 15 PCs, and it is a restricted access suite. So we basically require people to sign in, and they're supposed to be working on a digital media project of some kind. The biggest thing for us is that we're helping to prepare the students for their future work life. I had somebody from urban planning in here a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the perspective of doing presentations, and she's basically that she couldn't do her job. Talking to boards of directors and talking to city councils and things like that without knowing how to present her ideas and how to present them well. So that's one of the major things that we're working on, teaching students some of the softwares and the skills for digital literacy, digital fluency that they're going to need in their future work lives. We also have, all the equipment that we have is pretty much funded by student technology fee grants. We have a new grant proposal in for about $150,000 for this year, new cameras, those types of things, but also some, we're hoping to go into 3D printing, and I don't know a lot about it yet, but I'm going to learn. We're also looking at holographic systems and virtualization, visualization. We're partnering with our Center for Virtualization and Applied Spatial Technologies. So we want to get more into, like I said, the visualization, getting into 3D printing, getting into GIS skills, those types of things. So that pretty much covers it for what I wanted to say. I'm going to stop. I think I've just stopped sharing, and I will hand off to Brian?
Hand it to Bo, please.
Hand it to Bo. Okay, handing off to Bo.
Thank you very much, Barbara. So I forgot to advance the slides, so in case you missed it, there is the URL for Barbara's space, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Bo Baker. There you go.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I guess to sort of capture what we do here in studio at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, I can give you sort of some quick bullet points. We are actually a brand new service point. We are less than a year old. We're part of a new library construction. So back in January, we opened a new $48 million library facility, and studio was a part of that building project. I've been here at UTC for about 6 years, and we offered some of these services but did not have a dedicated point for it. So that's where studio sort of came out of. When I describe the space, I like to boil it down to 5 things we do. Much like barbershop, we have some overlap in terms of what we're doing there. So partially it's lab space. We have 24 machines, half Windows, half Mac, and they're loaded with similar software. So creative, Adobe Cloud, the Autodesk suite, some additional prototyping, AV kinds of one-offs. We also have some specialty hardware for digitization for most analog media. Second thing we do is we circulate materials. So again, a lot of this is AV based. So myriad cameras, all of the accessories such as tripods, lenses, hard drives, microphones, things like that. But we also circulate prototyping and development tools. So this is where we get into things like microcontrollers, Raspberry Pis, Makey-Makeys, some of that sort of prototyping stuff. Third thing we do is we provide access to production rooms. So we have 2 production rooms in studio that are reservable, and you check them out for basically up to 3 hours at a time. And one of those is a sort of image, photography, videography room. So it's sound isolated. It also has some backdrops, including a green screen, light kit, so you can do lighting. It's got a product box. It's got all kinds of sort of lighting equipment so that you can customize your lighting materials. Across the hall from that, we have our what we call our audio suite, which Emily and I are actually sitting in right now. And this is has a workstation, has an input-output box for microphones, has a couple of mics already set up, has a giant MIDI controller, some instrument mics, things like that. So this is for anything from podcasts, interviews, webinars to music creation. Fourth thing we do is we do provide access to 3D printing for the entire university community. This is a paid service that we mediate, and we help people sort of figure it out, and then just maintain the machines ourselves, which can be a burden sometimes, and basically offer that as a service, much like you might offer your paper printing. And the fifth thing, and honestly, it's the thing that we make probably our most important thing, is the best technology we have are these walking bipedal wetware human beings. They're wonderful. So we offer all kinds of help, and this has really come into the full swing here in this fall semester, where we've ramped up our instruction, where we're getting in with instructors from the very beginning, so that we are, helping design assignments and providing guidance and help on how to get assignments completed and how to achieve higher quality assignments. So we're doing instruction, we're doing labs, we're doing lectures, we're doing all kinds of stuff. Oftentimes we're doing all of that stuff for the same class throughout the semester. But we also offer one-on-one consultations. We have a service, a desk that we're always staffing, so that we're here for that sort of point of need help. And we try to keep our hours. We're not open quite as long as the library, but we do stay open into the evening to get students when they're not in class. Our staff is comprised of 2 librarians, including myself. We have about what I think of as 2.5 full-time staff. One of those staffers we share with another department here in the library. And then similarly, we have 8 students that work with us. And that's what we're about. So I'll pass the ball to.
Thank you very much, Bo. I'm going to go ahead and advance the slides. And the next person we're going to hear from is Brian Sinclair at Georgia State University, talking about their curve. So there you go, Brian. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. This is Brian Sinclair at Georgia State in downtown Atlanta. Hope everybody can hear me okay. I'm going to advance the slide here. Whoops, went to the very end. Let's see. So my slide deck was preloaded. And let's see.
Brian, next to the tab where it says ULS online discussion, it says Sinclair ACRL. So if you click over on that tab, we should see it.
If I click over in that tab, sorry, there we go. All right. So let me tell you, I have a few slides here with images of Curve to kind of explain what the space is. I'm the Associate Dean for Public Services here, and we're very interested in new types of research and learning environments. I'll let you take a look at the mission here. Curve is was envisioned as a digital scholarship and data visualization space. And as you can see, we are providing technology and spaces that promote interdisciplinary engagement, collaborative investigation, and innovative inquiry. And we'll go to the next slide and just show you some pictures. So this is the exterior. Curve began as a white paper with our data services and maps librarian and our campus GIS guru. They came up with this great idea to create an interdisciplinary geospatial research lab for the library. Maps here are important in many disciplines, and making maps is important. When the opportunity for funding presented itself, we quickly expanded this idea to include visual research beyond mapping and GIS. The formal planning began in early 2013, and we identified a group of 40 faculty and grad students. We also invited undergrads, but very few came to our focus groups. But we identified a group of maybe 39 or 40 faculty and grad students with interest in data visualization maps, and they helped influence the design of the space. So our architect's rendering of Curve, the process began in 2013. Our ribbon cutting was in 2014. So we've been open 1 year and a couple of months. So this is the artist rendering, and this is roughly what the space looks like on a day like today when it's cloudy and rainy here in downtown Atlanta. This is the centerpiece technology in the space. This is the Interact wall, we call it. It's a 24-foot touch-enabled visualization wall for complex models and visualizations. And I can talk more about that if there are questions, but these are becoming somewhat popular at other universities. So as intended in the initial white paper, Curve is still very much focused on geospatial research. But in Google Earth, in particular, mapping applications, ArcGIS, work very well in this environment. But Curve is much more than a visualization space for GIS. This is kind of a layout of the space. As you can see, the Interact wall is there, kind of floating in the middle of the upper part of the space, and there are workstations throughout. There's a room dedicated to 3D scanning, not 3D printing, but making 3D models and 3D visualization. There's a business research area, and we even have our Bloomberg terminals in there for data, for business data research. And here's an example of the collaborative workstations we have that facilitate peer learning and team-based research, and the unique furnishings and unique hardware perfect for group projects such as this. And we have very high-end workstations. That was something our users said, we want a place where we can get these really high-end computers to run our programs and simulations. So we have some very high-end GPUs. You can see that it's PCs and Macs, 12 processor cores in the PCs. And this brought in our computer science students very quickly. We have a hard time getting computer science students to come over, but this got them in very quickly. So here's another example of some group work. And one of the design principles, the primary goals of the space was ease of use. So our video wall is easy to use. The student at the control console in the foreground is driving the content on the wall from a single workstation. The content on the 3 monitors at that station are controlled on the wall, which means that any application that can run on this workstation can be displayed on the wall as displayed here. That was one of the driving principles, is that this space be easy to use without mediation. And here's just a couple of examples in conclusion of how faculty and students are using the space. This is a virtual tour with an anthropology professor. These are some archaeological sites in Mesoamerica. He's starting first in Google Earth. This is a touch wall, so he's able to touch and drill down, showing multiple archaeological sites. From here, he moves down to a particular Maya site in Chiapas, Mexico. And here he can give the students a 360 view of the space. We're also interested in exploring Oculus Rift and virtual reality tours in Curve as well. And we have a couple of groups that use their Oculus Rifts in the space in development. And so here, even closer, he is, let's see, it's not responding. Give it 1 second. Here we go. So here, even closer, we're looking down on the temple face, and this is a quote from him. This is a much more impactful way to have students experience these places than your standard projector in a classroom. And he says the students are just love this particular lecture. Of course, students use the space as well for their presentations. This is a grad student in public health. He actually made some maps using Google overlays in Google Earth, and involved community members and other students. So we've got grad students presenting their final research projects. Here we have one of our subject librarians, social sciences and data services librarian, who does one of her very popular In Vivo workshops. In Vivo is a qualitative data analysis tool that's become very popular on our campus in the social sciences and the humanities as well for text analysis. This is a faculty member doing a meetup with the R program, both coding and using it for statistical analysis, and those are very popular. So this is one example. We have a lot of interest too in Stata and SPSS, and we're trying to get our some librarians that can provide those type of meetups as well. And then the last example for us is we really want to see increased engagement with the sciences. This is a geologist, actually, and he's studying core samples from East Africa, and this is part of a Smithsonian project in conjunction with the Smithsonian Institution. And final slide I have here is, and it went black on my screen. Let's see if I can pull it up. Yeah, it's not there. Anyway, it was another image of that professor using the touch wall to drill into the core sample to show the different layers. But anyway, that's kind of an overview of Curve and some of the projects. And it's very interesting to hear all the other presenters today, because almost everything they said we're also interested in doing as well. So thank you very much. And now, do I turn it over to someone?
Thank you very much. If you could just pass the ball back to Bo Baker, and then I can pass it along from there. So thank you very much to everyone. We're going to go ahead and open it to questions. Like I said, I'm kind of following along in the chat, so if you do have a question, put it there. But beforehand, I know those of us that are interested in doing something like this, we often have to answer the question, why does this go in a library? And so I thought we would start there. So if the participants want to just kind of jump in when they can, you can turn your microphones on and off. Who'd like to start?
I'll start. This is Barbara Lewis. One of the things we've been doing at the USF Tampa Library for about the last 8 years or so is finding partners that maybe are not directly related to classroom activities, but that are also very involved in the whole process of student success and supporting the teaching and learning mission of the university. So we started out a few years ago, and our tutoring and learning services office and our writing center that is basically run by graduate students out of the College of the English department. They moved into the library. A little bit later, the Office of Undergraduate Research moved into the library. We turned our second floor into a smart lab, which supports tutoring and actually classroom activities, and the computers are specifically set up for STEM education. We have a job shop, which is run by our Career Center in the library. So as part of this idea of one-stop shopping, the idea of the libraries providing a resource. We provide resources, we provide information. For us, the Digital Media Commons fell into that, and that's why it's in the library. And another big part of it is we do have some of these types of operations in other organizations, like obviously Mass Communication has their own video production studios and audio and those types of things. But those studios, those labs are only available to Mass Comm students. In the library, they're available to everyone.
Thanks, Barbara. Why don't we move along, Bo? What do you have to add?
Yeah, I would. I'll start with some practical stuff. Again, because we were part of a new building way back when, before I was even here, we did focus groups, and students, part of their response to what do you want to see in the new library was stuff like this. So, that was what got us started down that path. I think in general, if I'm, and I know I'm probably speaking to the choir here, but libraries are really good at filling in gaps. And we saw a gap on our campus that needed to be filled, and we thought we could do it. I'll echo Barbara's sentiment that having a studio here in the library is a neutral space. Yes, engineering has their 3D printing stuff. Comm has their TV studios. Interior design has their sort of their studio. But we're open late when some of those labs might close down early. B, we are available to everybody. I mean, I've talked to some engineering students on our campus who didn't have access to their engineering department's 3D printers because they weren't in the right class. So even people that were in the department didn't have access to some of these things. So, I think it is partially because we're a leveler of access. And I would also add that, librarians are great at being the connector between human and technology. And I think elsewhere in our library, our instruction folks have a really great reputation on our campus. So, for the library to take this on and especially focus on, teaching and all of that, all those components, no one really balked at it because we were already doing those things very well for sort of non-tech kinds of things.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah, I will just say that there's a lot of interest in the research and visualization services that we're providing. And we haven't really, I'm trying to answer a few of the chats, maybe at the same time I answer this question too. We really haven't hit upon the right staffing model yet. We have a great space. We have some librarians who are focusing on data services and digital scholarship, but we haven't hit upon the right staffing model. Right now we provide a really great space, staffed primarily by students or peer learners, peer teachers, I guess. And we have a few librarians who have taken on data services as part of their portfolios, particularly GIS, qualitative research, and quantitative and business data. And then the other side, the digital scholarship side, there's a lot of interest again in the humanities in that area, and we are still trying to figure out that model. But why would a library have a space like Curve? There's a lot of interest in having a space like Curve on our campus. Some of our more traditional services we provide, while they're essential, we have seen a decrease in at least gate counts and transactions in some of our more traditional services.
So while we've got you, Brian, a lot of people are asking about the software you use for your Interact wall. Would you happen to let us know what that is?
Yes, I can share that. All of our Curve planning has been documented on a LibGuide. If you go to Curve, actually the URL that's up right now, and if one of the drop downs has our planning and process, all of the focus groups we did, the vendor selection, the site visits we made. But the company is a local Atlanta-based company called Cinemassive. and they're documented on that website. Early on, one of I guess the earliest sites that I was familiar with like Curve is at Brown University, and I contacted them, and they said we used a AV integrator that's here in Rhode Island, and I thought that's very interesting. You have somebody in your back door that can actually come out and tweak and look at things. So the vendors here in Atlanta, I will say this video walls, it's just a bunch of panels, LCD panels in an array. It's the control software that's key, and Cinemassive provides their own control software called CineNet, and we had certain criteria, and it met the criteria. So we were very fortunate they were in our own back door.
Thank you very much. We're also getting a lot of questions about financing. So if we could start with how things were financed. And let's start with Bo this time.
Sure. So again, we're a little bit unique in that we're a lot of new construction. So so the space came from out of a new building budget, but the technology came from the general library budget. And so we are an institution that gets a library fee. We do have a lot of control over our own finances, which is cool. The thing that we're dealing with now, and again, this is something that's happening because of the new building and because we're really not just in the studio but throughout the library becoming the tech hub on campus, is that we need to come up with a refresh cycle. I mean, we need to figure out how are we going to continue to update all of this new technology that we have. It's wonderful that it's shiny and new now, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what does all this stuff look like? So I don't have a great answer for you because we're just trying to figure it out, and I think we're just sort of starting to sort of come up with plans for that. But that's for anyone who are in these spaces or thinking about these spaces. That's a huge consideration, I think, to add to your planning.
Do you have a ballpark figure as to how much this audio suite in particular costs?
The audio suite in particular, it's hard to say. So the actual equipment was probably on the hand of maybe $5,000–6,000 for the equipment, but probably the real cost was again part of the building construction, and that is there's soundproofing built into the architecture to help keep noise from out in the main area coming back into a little corridor where the studio is kept. So I think that was probably the really expensive part. The tech is considerably less expensive, and if you're doing any sort of refurbishing or anything like that, those costs probably go up considerably.
Thank you very much. So Barbara, how did you guys finance yours?
Equipment-wise, we were and are continuing to be financed largely through our student technology fees. I put something up on the chat about that. Basically, anybody, we charge students something like $18 or $20 a semester or per class. I'm not sure how much it is or how much, but we usually end up with about $4 or $5 million a year that anybody can then go, and anybody on campus, obviously, any department can put together a grant proposal, and it has to be something that directly affects students, and it has to be something that directly impacts student success. So this year we've got about $150,000 worth of proposal in, but we're part of a larger proposal with our Center for Virtualization and Applied Spatial Technologies, our Advanced Visualization Center, Information Technology, the College of Engineering, and the College of the Arts, basically in enhancing 3D printing, 3D scanning technologies, visualization, virtualization technologies, all of that sort of thing. Holographic, I think I mentioned holographic rooms, a cave, a computer-aided virtual environment. So that's basically how, from an equipment standpoint, and to some degree, some staffing that we get taken care of. Similar to Bo, although we have not been fortunate enough to get a new library, we have been fortunate over the past several years that the university has awarded us funds to do renovations of our existing facility, and so the Digital Media Commons, which is on the first floor of the library, that was funded through one of our space enhancement projects. One other thing is we do staff with students quite a bit, but and they are paid for out of our temporary employee budget. But we're also starting to use some federal work study students, and they're doing fantastic work. And one of the great things about that is it doesn't really cost the library anything. So I'll throw in that plug for FWS.
Thanks, Barbara. Brian, how is yours financed?
Wow, this is very interesting. So our initial money came from student tech fee. We have a mandatory student tech fee here. Someone smarter than I decided a few years ago to take 10% off the top to fund innovation for students. So Curve was awarded the lion's share of that innovation that year. I guess this was a 2014 cycle. And so we got a nice chunk of change. And that resonated with some administrators who thought this would be important to have an interdisciplinary data visualization space, big data being something I hear all the time on our campus, and data analytics being something I hear all the time on our campus. So I think the initial word was under $300,000. We were going to have a $300,000 small visualization space. Somebody, senior administration kicked in another $600. We were reporting to the VP for research at the time. He got on board. He gave us a nice bit of money for this. So, I'll say that student tech fee, if you have that, and there's a way you can get use some of that, this directly benefits students. I'll also say that we have also not figured out the continuing funding model for this. I'm not so convinced that video walls are going to be the future, but it'll be a good one for the next 3 years. So we will figure that out as well.
Thanks very much, Brian. We are also getting a lot of questions about choices made with staffing. Is it mostly librarians? Did you hire anybody new? Are you going with professionals? So I think it's Brian's turn to start. So if you wanted to tell us how you chose to staff it and why.
Sure. One of our data services librarians who was instrumental in helping me and others plan Curve, he agreed to be the interim director for a year. We realized it was a lot of student scheduling, a lot of replacing of dry erase markers, a lot of having housekeepers clean, and we decided that we would actually staff it primarily with students, but it's actually a unit of our, we don't call it access services or circulation, we call it user services and technology support. It's actually now managed by our head of access services, who does a great job scheduling students, and that's why she was chosen. She has a great team, but the librarians, the talent, the people in the space that help our researchers and students, by and large, are librarians who have taken upon these new roles for themselves. So we have a librarian who's very much interested in 3D modeling. We have another, as I showed in my slides, who does a lot of qualitative and text mining workshops, which are very popular. But by and large, we provide a space with working technology from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. During weekdays and weekends for a few hours. The only new staff member we added, we had a vacant line, was for a AV tech, and it's not really AV, but a tech person in our, we have our own IT within our library whose responsibility is Curve, our one-button studio, our many group study rooms that have technology, and so he's on call to get down into the weeds with some of this technology, and that was the only new staff member. The rest were reassigned roles.
Thanks very much. Bo, you want to tell them what we're doing here?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, we've got 2 librarians, 2.5 full-time staffers, and then a small team of students. And we wanted to get a second librarian in the space because librarians are very flexible. You know, we do a ton of teaching, and we knew we wanted to focus on teaching. So you know, we were able to basically, we didn't get a new position. We just sort of reappropriate a vacant line. So our librarians are, like I said, they're great instructors. They're liaisons to departments on campus. We serve on faculty senate and do all those sort of higher sort of campus-wide initiatives, and that's why we wanted to get another librarian. For our full-time staff, we went with people who are practitioners rather than necessarily like technologists. We tended to invite people in who were practicing something, whether it be music production or graphic design or filmmaking or any of that sort of stuff, with the hopes that we would find people who are sort of creatively and technologically limber enough to be able to learn things quickly and sort of improvise on the fly and that sort of thing. One note I'll say about that is that we like the generalist approach because we never know what we're going to see in here. We might in one day just see nothing but video documentaries. That's cool. The next day we might have someone come in who wants to do animatronics for their art project. The day after that, we might have someone who comes in and, wants 3D modeling to build their own musical instruments or something, right? So, it's kind of impossible to be a master of everything. So we try to find people who are just, really good at learning things quickly and aren't really afraid to be in that position. So that's who we look for.
Thank you. Barbara, I know you've already covered this a little bit. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Just a couple of things. I'm primarily staffed by students, and then we do have a media technologist who we hired this summer, and she is responsible for managing the students, managing the operation, buying the markers and making sure that getting the equipment repaired when it needs to be, getting the software updated on the computers, those types of things. The other side of it is we're actually looking at our library liaison program. And I think we're basically working ourselves into what's called the hybrid model, where we have a set of subject matter experts, but then we also have a set of people who are experts in other areas like GIS that then can support education and business and the geosciences, etc. Having a person who is maybe a digital humanities specialist that knows text analysis and data text mining. Same thing for business that can do those types of things. So while they don't report to, they're not part of the Digital Media Commons, they don't report to me, they would be people that I would work with, pull in for projects and things like that as needed.
Thanks. Quick question from Eric Johnson. He was wondering how we decided what to call the spaces, whether it's a very straightforward name or a creative one. So who would like to start with that?
I can. I'll take that one. Yeah, that's kind of one of those things that functionally doesn't seem like a big deal, but it kind of is, and it can keep you up at night, right? I think we chose Studio because we wanted something that was general enough to encompass everything from making a flyer for your organization to 3D modeling to everything in between, right? So we wanted to give the space something that was sort of classic, broad. We had plenty of names in the hopper, I think, at some point, but that's why we ended up with Studio. And I guess my personal preference is avoiding something. Was this the one? Or are you the person that mentioned Awesome House? Yeah. Awesome House, it's pretty cool, it's pretty bold, but are you going to be happy with that in 5 years? I don't know. And do you want to rebrand? I think those are sort of the questions. We had similar names. I don't remember them off the top of my head. One of them I think was like Gig City Lab. I remember that one because Chattanooga is a gig city because of our high-speed internet. So I kind of like Studio because it's generic and but not super generic. You know what I mean? It wasn't just super functional.
Thanks. Barbara, how'd you name yours?
Good question. I wasn't part of the group at that point, but I know one of the things is we started off years ago with the Information Commons. We now call that space the Learning Commons. We've got another Commons in the building, and I'm sure that had an impact on us. Commons being part of this name, and then the other is I think we all just the choice to make it very straightforward so that people knew pretty much what they were getting into. So I'd say that's, and the other thing is, and this is for the people who were actually alive in the 1980s. We have the running joke about running the DMC. So. But then again, most of our students here look at us with blank stares because they have never heard of Run DMC. So,
Brian, where did Curve come from?
It was just a brainstorming exercise with some librarians and others in a room, and I remember our head of research and engagement, that's the subject librarian, the head of the subject librarian, she and I hit upon CRAVE, and I forget what that acronym stood for, it sounded terrible, and then I hit upon CURVE, I think, on the train. We take MARTA every day to work, and I thought it'll be a great headline in the student paper or something. Here's a space that's ahead of the curve, so that's when we knew we had something.
So Leslie Warren's curious about how we're assessing our services. I think maybe it's Barbara's turn to start.
Oh, assessment is always so much fun. We just actually started a library-wide assessment committee. We've done what I call a lot of measuring and a lot of numbers. Generating of numbers. How many students do we have? What software are they using? What equipment are they using? What colleges are they from? That sort of thing. We haven't done anything that I consider assessment, which is what's the impact. And obviously libraries everywhere are trying to figure out how to do their assessment. So that's actually what I'm going to be working on over the next year or so is, what do we want to actually assess? What will it mean to us? And how do we react to the results of the assessment?
Thanks. Brian, have you started any assessment yet?
Yes, assessment is very important here. I should explain, CURVE is in a very visible space. It's mostly glass, but you do have to swipe in and swipe out of the space. So that was for security purposes, thinking it late at night. There is some very high-end equipment in there, and we made that decision early on. So we have all the swipe card data, both in and out, duration of visit, major, GPA, all that kind of stuff. We can tell you who's using it, faculty, grad student, et cetera. My personal views on assessment, I love numbers, but I also love stories and anecdotes. And so my personal goal for me and my team was to have 10 great stories to tell at the end of our first year. And if you go to CURVE, the URL right there, you can see our annual report. I think it's called A Look Back at the First Year, and there's easily 10 more stories. No, they're not stories, but they list some of the projects that came out of CURVE. So those would be my two. And by the way, usage has doubled. First year was very successful. This fall we've doubled. I think we're at capacity. We're going to have to start looking at other spaces, perhaps even a maker space or the type of spaces you all described today for more media projects. But those are just a couple of examples.
Oh.
Can we just have a moment of applause for 10 great stories? I love that. I think that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it is an ongoing problem, and our library is also trying to figure out assessment in the big scheme of things right now. The stuff that we're sort of collecting involves, myriad things, right? So we are tracking desk interactions, trying to figure out, how long are we working for at point of need. where are students coming from department-wise? Are they working on something that seems more like for an assignment or more for funsies? You know, that sort of stuff. We're also tracking our instruction numbers, so we know which professors we've taught for, which departments we're in. We keep track of assignments. That's more practical day-to-day stuff, so that we know what we're up against. We obviously track all of our circ numbers and can look at those. For all of our equipment, we know what's popular, what's really coming in and out. We've also, I mean, as a flip side, we've had to start tracking what people ask for that we don't have, right? So, and not just new equipment, but existing equipment. So when someone comes in and says, hey, I want one of your Micro Four Thirds cameras, and we have a couple of them, we have to be like, sorry, we don't have that. And we've started tracking that so we can understand what we're turning away. Again, like Brian's 10 great stories, that's awesome. I think I like the narrative as well. And again, this is our first major semester where we've done a lot of teaching, so we're planning on following up with the faculty we've been working on or working with. And we're also trying to, when we see cool projects or any projects really, we do ask, hey, do you mind if we keep some of this for our records so that we can understand what's coming out of the space?
Thanks. So we've got 2 more questions that I'm going to try and get to because we are running out of time. So quickly, if you could say, Justin Foreman is wondering if the space is responsible for saving, backing up, or making accessible your patrons' digitally created work. Do you rely on the computer's internal space or have another backup system in place? If you do back up student content, how do you store and make it accessible? So if you could give a fairly quick answer, because I want to get to one other question before we go, starting with Brian.
So yes, this is a challenge. Real quick, we're using hosted services primarily for maps, things like, I forget the GIS, the ARC, Esri story maps. We've got faculty interested in Omeka, a domain of one's own. An English professor who's using that, I believe. Reclaim Hosting, I think, is the service. Various hosted services that faculty and students can create their own web pages, and we encourage them to blog them or tweet them, and we try to monitor that as well.
Thank you. Bo?
No, we don't do anything locally. We've investigated high-speed network redundancy with campus IT. That's a much long-term project, and it's very expensive. In the short term, we bought a bunch of external hard drives. We check them out for a few weeks. That handles most issues, and we also train a lot of our students to use things like Google Drive because their email, we're a Google campus, so their email is in Gmail.
Barbara?
Ditto about the Google Drive. We also use that. Every student gets, from IT, they get 4 gigabytes when they become a student, and then they can actually expand that. We totally discourage students in any computer lab from saving to the actual computer device they're on. We encourage them to always save to their network device, whether it's Dropbox, Google Drive, or their university space. We do use Omeka. We have an instance of Omeka here, so anybody that's working on a digital exhibit, the library provides the space for that. We also have an instance of Scalar, which we installed recently. So that's like digital books, dissertations, those types of things. And that with the library also provides space for that. And then we do have a lot of the different big cloud services that the library is actually looking at the Amazon cloud service to actually provide more space in some of these areas.
And can I jump in real quick? Our library does not provide space or storage right now for those. But we do help and facilitate faculty to find these hosted solutions, and there are free ones out there. But we just want to know about them, and archiving, documenting, preserving these great projects. That's a whole other webinar, I think.
I would agree with that. So the last question came from Scott Spiker, and he asked, what would you do differently? So let's go ahead and start with Bo, because he's on this microphone.
Sure. We're still figuring it out. Again, less than a year, but I can say that the surprising thing for us was this audio suite. I would have built 2 or 3 of them or made a big audition space for music because this thing is booked all the time and it's very popular. So that's like a specific technology that I didn't anticipate being super popular. So you know, I think in general we're still figuring it out. And there isn't much that I would do differently. I'm sorry, that's maybe not an exciting answer.
Just to clarify that, I had to book this room a week and a half ago for this. Otherwise, it would have been gone.
And we feel totally guilty.
Yes, we feel totally guilty. Brian, how about you?
I guess I'll echo Bo. It's a work in progress. There's nothing that doesn't work. I think a space like Curve appeals to a different type of learner and researcher that likes collaboration and maybe noise and I guess what they call it serendipitous interaction. If quiet contemplation is for you, Curve may not be for you. So maybe we weren't in tune with the people who don't like noise, but we do have other options for them in our building. So.
Thanks. Barbara, what about you?
I'm going to agree with both. The number one, that we don't really have anything that isn't working other than not having enough equipment and enough space. And also that the one thing we don't have is an audio and any kind of audio studio. We have a green room, but we don't have anything for audio only. And I would love to build at least one room that way, and I think it's something we should have gotten from the beginning. The other thing is that it is always going to be a work in progress because the technology is changing constantly, and it's always going to be a challenge to try and keep up with it.
Well, thank you all so much for coming, and thank you especially to our panelists for participating. Erica had a question about what's going to be the next library tech, so I've started a hashtag #NextLiveTech, if you wanted to continue that conversation on Twitter. We're incredibly grateful that you all came, and there should be URLs and various other things in the chat and in the recording, and I'm certain that our panelists will be more than happy to take questions if you have them. I know a couple people have specific questions for Brian about the Enterprise Center, so you can contact him directly for that. But thank you very much for coming, and I hope you guys have a lovely day and lovely holiday.
Thank you very much to all of our presenters today, and thank you to the participants for the awesome questions that we had. We have been recording today, so we will distribute that recording to everyone that registered. Please, if you could, take our evaluation. The link is there on the screen. If any of you are interested in being a panelist for a future online discussion, please contact one of the facilitators. On behalf of the University Library section, thank you for joining us today, and have a great day.